morning. We are going to work first on assessing the body, looking at the right and the left side and feeling for our imbalances today. So we're going to start with the foam roller and we will look into our hips. Okay, so kind of starting with the stuck stress that can exist in our pelvis. So we're going to start seated on it. This first half I'd like to go through kind of just a quick flow, quick release. So if I'm going just a little bit fast, no, you can always come back to it to try to hit more of that tension. So legs are going to come in front of you, just a little swing, pushing and pulling. If you feel unbalanced or unstable on the foam roller at any time, you can always bring the hands onto the floor to assist you. So where I'm feeling tightest today really is in my spine. So I'd like to focus a little bit on some twisting, but we want to let go of the back before we can rotate. So I'm going to start to turn a little bit more onto my right hip, going up and down on the right. And I'm kind of almost making circles with my knees. Deepening that roll out or that release further still if you'd like. I'm going to find that figure 4 with my right foot in front. And here's where we're trying to open up the tightness of the external rotators in the hip. Little up and down. If you need to adjust that foam roller every now and then, kind of putting it in the middle. It does sometimes have a mind of its own. I'm going to keep rolling onto my right. Couple options here. I think I'm going to bring my foot down onto the floor as well as my elbow. So I feel just a little bit more supported with my body. The left foot is also firmly planted. Hands could be onto the foam roller, the floor, or your hip, whatever feels good. You're going to start to bend your right knee as you feel like you're going to open your body up towards the ceiling. So I'm rolling back just a little bit on where I feel more like the muffin top of my pelvis. And then as I push that right leg straight, I'm going to turn back towards you, and I'm pushing the foam roller towards that bony exterior of my hip. I'm bending, feeling it roll up towards my glute. I'm pressing, feeling it roll down the outside of my hip. Just a little back and forth like that. Breathing naturally, back and forth. And when we evaluate the right and the left, it's both range of motion and also tension, so stuckness. Maybe as we kind of explore, you're going to feel that one side is much more tender, and that tells you a little bit about maybe where you're holding that stress. Go ahead and start to roll off the front of that foam roller so that the foam roller is now, again, kind of right there at the muffin top or the small of your back, below your 12th rib, and above your pelvis. I'm going to push into my left foot to bring my right foot as a figure 4 again, and this time I'm going to gently rock right to left. And I'm going to try to kind of picture like my body were a hammock or a sling, and I'm sinking back into that hammock, which is gently pressed up against the foam roller behind me. Adding on, if you'd like, push into that left foot, find a posterior tilt, and then soften and find a neutral. Exhale, posterior tilt. This can be just a little bit on that right shoulder. Find a position that feels comfortable for you. Just be careful that you don't start to crunch into the shoulder. But we want to think a little bit of a lift so that just the lumbar spine and pelvis are pulling and rocking. Stay lifted for me and start to smooth out your muffin top. I like to visualize this sort of as like rolling out dough. It starts as a clump, right? And you've got to start to push away from your center in all directions. So spread the length of your low back, trying to open up the back of your right hip. Gently, we'll set the pelvis down. We're going to take a nice easy breath. Just try to kind of let the body go. Visualize that inhale, that hammock again, like you're expanding into it. Exhale completely. Go ahead and let's carefully slide the right leg underneath. We're going to turn more onto our right side. So now I'm lying on the outside of my hip. And let's move into a rotation. Let's see how it feels today. What is our range of motion? Where are we feeling tight? So I'd like you to think a little bit about the back of your right shoulder and the back of your right hip. So the hip we just released, that's kind of an anchor point. That as you twist, we're going to think we're stretching out of the back of that hip. So the left hand's going to come behind the head. And your right hand and shoulder are still active. Careful you don't crunch into it. On an inhale, I'd like you to spiral your body down to the floor and think almost like your elbow is stretching towards the far side of your mat. And then on an exhale, I want you to come back up. Little twist up towards the ceiling. Doesn't have to go far because real quick, check that right shoulder. Sometimes it wants to internally rotate. I want you to think, just lift up. And then inhale. And exhale. And I have a hard time continuing to inhale as I go down. But that's where I actually want to work, to send my breath back into the back side of my left ribs as I'm anchoring my right hip. Let's do twice more. Inhaling as you're reaching through that elbow. Exhaling, shifting that weight back. Stay out of your right shoulder. Last one, I'm pushing into my left foot just a little bit. It's helping me to anchor my right hip. And then all the way back, up through center. Whew. Good, and back. Carefully come off that foam roller just enough so that you can roll it up to now the armpit. So I'm going to go kind of past my bra line, up into my armpit to continue to twist. The right elbow is going to come down. So a couple leg options. You could keep both legs tucked in front of you if you'd like. You could find more of your mermaid position if you'd like. Whatever feels best for you. We're still thinking the diagonal sling. So my left shoulder as it crosses the back of my body to the back of my right hip. That's where we're working on that twisting sensation. So both hands behind the head. Take the inhale as you roll forward, stretching and massaging the armpit into the foam roller. And I'm going to try to tap my elbow towards the floor. That's how far I'm rotating. And then as I come up, this time I am going to go farther back. And I'm going to let my shoulder girdle now roll back onto the foam roller behind me. If I push into my left shin just a little bit, I'm getting a nice adductor hip engagement. And then roll back through center onto the front. So I'm on my pec now. And then as I roll back, I'm on the back of my left shoulder. Now maybe you won't get as far. That's okay. You're exploring your range of motion here, right? Where are you tight? What is restricting this movement? Sometimes I call it sticky, right? You're feeling a little sticky in a hip or a joint. Let's do the last one. We're going to exhale as we roll back. Opening that up, just testing it out. Back through center, hand comes onto that foam roller, and carefully bring yourself up. So moving into our mermaid next, deepening that twist again. Left hand is going to stay on the foam roller as we work through our C fan at first. So just a gentle swaying back and forth. And right here in this mermaid position, we also can test and evaluate our balance. So how heavy do you feel in that left hip? Some of us don't really like mermaid. Our hips don't like mermaid, right? It feels like that left hip doesn't get to the floor all the way up. That's all right. My left hip is not on the floor, but I'm going to try to make it feel heavy to the floor beside me. From here, let's just start. Right hand's going to stay where it's at. Here's our twist again. I want you to add a little bit of a push into your shin, into the inside of your heel. Do you start to feel how that's helping you to turn your pelvis around? If you start to push, start to turn, and just tap the foam roller with your hand. How far around are you? Where are you tight? Pat, bring your foam roller on the other side. That's going to be a tough one. There you go. Beautiful. Right? So where do we feel stuck? And I'm actually feeling my left glute turn on just a little bit, and then open it back up, dropping that left sit bone back down. So there's a little spiraling sensation happening in your pelvis, right? It's helping to push you around, tapping the foam roller, feeling that left glute turn on, and then opening back up. Let's do once more like that. Turning around, tapping the foam roller. Checking that out. How does that feel? We are going to go ahead and go all the way around. Both hands will come onto the foam roller. And let's pour ourselves all the way down just to enjoy that little bit of a stretch. So lengthening through those fingertips. I'm starting to get a stretch through the outside of my right hip again. Guys, there's that external rotator stretching open, kind of like our figure 4. I'm going to spiral the thumbs down to push energy through my arms away from my pelvis. So let your left shin feel heavy again. As we move into an extension, this is again where we might find some sticking points, lifting through the head neck, chest. Let your left shin feel heavy and try to lift up off of the foam roller as though your hands are light on it, right? That's a hard part. This is your waist. Lowering down. We're thinking of the gentle articulation through that upper body. I know it might be a little tight this morning. We haven't quite hit too much of our spine yet. So just start to explore that gentle movement. Try not to hold the position too long as we're still warming up the body. Last one, lifting through that head, neck, chest, stretching it up. We'll carefully circle that left arm open and spiraling all the way back down. Good. All right, so we're going to switch the foam roller to the other side now. We'll move through that same series on our left. So seated on the foam roller to start, gentle rocking up and down. Again, if you feel a little imbalanced or if it's nerve-wracking, sort of being unstable on the foam roller, you can always bring a hand behind you. So we were playing with the right diagonal sling, right, from the left shoulder to the right hip. Now we're going to play with the left diagonal sling. Start to shift over towards the left. This is where I'm going to be drawing those circles. And you can start to feel, how does the right hip feel compared to the left? Is it tighter? Is it looser? With the foam roller, we do not want any pain, numbing, or tingling. You may have a little discomfort, though, if you hit a knot. We're going to continue to move through that figure 4. So now I'm over all the way on my left side, pushing and pulling on the hip. What's interesting on this side is I start to feel that the left shoulder is quite a bit weaker. It's like it's not that I'm tight in my hip, it's that I feel fragile in my left shoulder. So I'm actually going to come down onto the elbow because I feel a little bit more support in that way. And then actually I can focus on the tension in my hip. Just a few more here. Up and down. Lengthening that left leg out, we're going to turn more onto that left side. The foam roller is starting at the bony exterior of your hip. Left foot is down, left elbow is down. The right hand can be where you feel comfortable. As you're bending that left leg, you're going to spiral towards the back of your left glute, but high, kind of into the pelvis. And then press and slide back to the outside of your hip. Bend, opening up. And then press. Again, this left shoulder, try not to sink into it. That's part of the work, which on this side I feel quite a bit weaker. Let's do twice more. I'm visualizing that bread dough again, right? Like I'm going to roll it out like a pizza, maybe starting in that middle and trying to spread it. Spreading that surface area. From here, we're going to gently bend and start to pour ourselves to the front of the foam roller. Sitting down on that foam roller. It's at the back of your pelvis, kind of right there at your hip, between your 12th rib and the top of your pelvis. The right foot is down, the left foot will crisscross, and we're gently going to rock a little right to left. Try not to collapse into that left shoulder. That might be a little bit harder, I know. Just a little rocking. We're going to add the posterior tilt if that feels good, pushing through the foot. You're going to scoop the wheel of your pelvis, and then you're going to set it back down. Scoop the wheel of your pelvis and set it back down. What I'd like you to do is use that exhale to help you come up. And then exhale. Let's do once more. If you'd like, stay up here. Stay with me. And then push and pull, spreading out that tension in your low back. It's a little tender here, so make sure you have a soft foam roller as you gently massage and feel like all of that stuck stress in your sacrum and low back, you're like spreading it out thin, like you're rolling out bread. Woo, there's a little knot right there. Gently we'll lower the pelvis down. This is where I'm going to take an inhale and visualize I'm letting go, sinking into that like hammock on a summer day. And breathe. We'll slide the left leg out from that figure 4, putting it underneath us as we turn now more onto our left side. So now the foam roller is very much in the small of my waist. If I were wearing like a a waist belt or like a corset, right? It would be right there. The left hand's going to stay down. The right hand's going to come behind the head. I'm going to switch your breathing on this side because I want us to engage those left obliques and work now stretching the right shoulder away from the left hip. So anchor through your left hip and use that exhale to lift the waist to try to stretch your right elbow towards the floor. Right, so lengthen it away. And then back up. Little bit of an opening. Again, watch that left shoulder. Careful you don't collapse into it. Exhale, lifting the left obliques. And then back up. We can evaluate the right and the left side. What is your range of motion here? How much are you able to twist? Do you feel stuck? As you get to a certain point, do you feel like there's something holding you back? Right? And what is that? Is it your ribs? Is it your muscle strength? Is it just that the hips are still really tight? Inhaling it up. We're going to do once more. We're going to exhale, lift those left obliques, turning down towards the floor, and then picking it all the way back up through center. Go ahead and carefully adjust. That foam roller is now going to come up to your armpit with the elbow down onto the floor. And then you can find whatever foot position or leg position feels good. I'm going to find my wide Z position for like my mermaid. Both hands come behind the head. Same breathing pattern. We're going to use that exhale as we spiral to the front of our left shoulder and try to reach through the right elbow. And then as you open, you're going to spiral to the back of your shoulder and check in and see how much of your shoulder girdle can get down. Oh, doesn't go as far for me. I don't know about you guys, but it's harder to let go as I roll back. We're going to exhale, spiral. And we're going to inhale to open. Rolling over your left shoulder. You're also testing to see where you feel tight in your left shoulder. Exhale, lift and twist. Inhale to roll. Opening it back. Maybe you feel like you're pushing through the inside. I am starting to get closer to my foam roller. That's good. I'm starting to loosen it up. Let's do once more like that for good measure. Inhaling. Feel like you're spreading your shoulders on the foam roller. And then slowly bring yourself back up. Carefully de-pretzel your body, bringing yourself up to seated. We'll find our mermaid position upright. So this is where that right and the left, right? So again, I can't get my right hip down. I feel tighter on this side too. Like it's like I'm leaning this way, even though I might look a little upright. Left hand stays on the foam roller as we move through our C fan, gently pushing and pulling. This is starting to use those obliques to lift and lower. Up and down. Find that left waist like somebody's grabbed your right hand. They're pulling you up off of the floor all the way up. Stay tall for me here. Let's work on that twist again. Yet again, I'm going to have you exhale as you spiral. Start to push into the right foot and twist. Is it easier or harder to find your foam roller? And then open it back up. Try to drop that right sit bone. So this is where my hip feels kind of tight, which I think is also not letting go, which makes it harder for me to find that rotation on this side. Let's do twice more. Lifting that left waist. My left shoulder feels a little out of alignment, not out of alignment, but it's a little bit shaky here, as though it's harder to hold it still. We're going to go ahead and bring both hands onto that foam roller. Add that little bit of a push into the inside of your right thigh, right knee, right foot helping you come around. Woo! How do you feel? Anybody stiff? Start to pour yourself down, lengthening through your fingertips. Try to stretch your fingertips away from your right shin. And there is that external rotator stretch in my hip again. It's like that figure 4 stretch. Moving into your extension. Spiral the thumbs up. Melt the shoulders. Lift through the heart. Pull the stomach away from your quad. How does your extension feel on this side? Reaching. Lifting. Let's do twice more. Reaching. And lifting, wrapping those shoulders back and down. Try to widen the collarbones. Think of the anchoring sensation through your pelvis again. And last one. Lift the abdominals. You're trying to square your shoulders to the front, even if your pelvis doesn't come around, right? So two different directions. Standing into that left arm, start to spiral the right one open and around to the other side. Whew. Nice job. Let's go ahead and set the foam roller out of the way. Thank you so much. That's class.